Go ahead.
There we go. I'm so excited to talk with you again and share some ideas. As always, I've been so inspired by your feed and what you do. I know you've helped me, your breakup deck and your feed has helped me, and it was amazing. It would just pop up these little cards of inspiration right when I needed it, and I am so grateful.
I'm so glad you like those. I mean, I did it from kind of like a labor of love type of thing, and just all the stuff that I learned on the way. And I was like, you know what? These could probably help other people. And I'm glad we stayed connected too.
Yeah, me too. So yes, you're doing huge things, and I love this idea of self-care and partnership and connecting in healthy ways. And I think some topics that we've gone over in workshops kind of needs to be out there, and you've got such a great talk on what it means to connect, heal, and grow forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, I get so many readings. I don't know about you too, because you do readings yourself, but I just find so much about, partnership with others. I'm lonely. I need to be with somebody. And it's like the only thing that's on people's minds, and they forget to check in with their self a lot. So that's my whole intention behind, all the work I do, even though it's hard sometimes. You can't make someone think that, but.
No. And for me, I've had to remind myself to keep coming home. I like that idea of checking in, but are you moving outside of who you are? Or I've even done the reverse where you're like, okay, I'm staying single as nobody's getting into this box.
Yeah.
So it's a dance. So.
Yeah, I was single like for 5 years in between one of my last exes to the guy that I date now. And I feel like it was really, really needed. Like it was almost like I got traumatized for a while. I had to fix all that and then go, okay, I'm ready again to step out.
Yeah, and that was definitely my intention when I moved into this apartment. I even got a single bed to remind myself, honey, you've got to just be you and take care of you. And it wasn't like broken versus fixed. It's just like I need to heal from that last relationship, and it just felt like this was the place for the place for self-love to begin, and nurturing whatever this means to be human on this planet, and whatever it means to be me now with all I've gone through and how to step forward. And I didn't think by any means that I could leave that last relationship and be healthy for another human being until I processed it all. And even my childhood as well.
Mm-hmm. So. And you're probably not wrong. Yeah. Yeah. I find this one thing, and we can cover this later, but one thing that keeps coming up for me with clients is, how we're always supposed to expect the best, right? With manifesting, you want to expect the best, you want to call in your soulmate, but then until you do that work on yourself, it's like you're not going to attract the right person yet, right? So these other people come into your life, and you might think that they are, but you're still like not right. So to me, it's a lot easier just instead of meeting a whole bunch of people, and not that they won't give you great lessons in the process too, because I do believe some people cut their lessons short, and they'll be like, oh, I don't even want to try this one because I know he's not perfect. And I feel like, you got to live life too, and get those lessons, because maybe you're going to learn something in that's going to help you for when you actually meet that person too, So there's like a fine line and balance in between this kind of space,
Definitely. I like that idea of lessons, because I do feel like we learn something from everyone. Sometimes it's that like what you don't want to learn, that hard, tough love lesson from spirit. But I do feel like, and I've seen this in the readings I've given, and I feel like you continue to cycle through the same person, even though they're same person energetically, until you learn the lesson that then physically, emotionally, and so forth, you mirror back someone who's more healthy to connect with. And I think that takes a long time.
Yeah, I literally talk about the same person. I've literally dated guys with the same exact birthday.
Wow.
I was like, that's when I noticed. I was like, oh my God, this is a pattern.
Definitely. And so interesting too, with you being an astrologer or doing astrology, that is also like that another cue for you to see. Hey.
Yes. Yeah. Yes,
Definitely.
it was really big where I was like, oh my God, or another person one day apart from each other. I would just like, oh God. So I definitely have a type, but it's also this other kind of type that I needed to kind of break my pattern and my cycle with too.
Right, right. There is one, and I wish I remember the actress's name, but somebody said something to her in an interview that she was single, and she titled herself self-partnered. And I was like, go girl. Like, this is a choice I am in. I am empowered by being me and taking care of me, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like. It was just
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's great. I mean, there's just, a handful of things that partnerships can give you to make your life easier, but I talk to a lot of people, and I would say a lot of people, their feedback is, I was happiest when I was by myself. And I find that to be really interesting because I'm talking older people now. They like their life. They've lived in it for a while, but things get old and things get routine. And they always just think back, maybe it was also to their younger years of just being too, that
right.
they're referring to as well. But they just tell me a lot. Like, I miss being alone.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something definitely about making your own choices. And I think definitely as like an empath, or if you do mediumship, if you're sensitive, however you want to term it, that time to refuel is huge to kind of discern everything around. And if you don't have the same level of vibration you need to be healthy, like I think you're always sifting through drama. I could be wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people have this idea too. I've noticed these are the harder ones to break, are the karmic partners, because there is a sense of knowing, there is a sense of, I recognize this person. And so your body feels connected to them. I've literally had with one of the people I call my karmic partner, he I couldn't break away from him for over 10 years, off and on for 10 years. And I think that's also why I liked him, because it wasn't regular and I didn't get bored of him because it was always off and on, but it was also the thrill of the catch. I'm not so sure if we actually got together, I would be that interested in it. So it's also going like looking at myself and saying, is this really what you want? Or is this just the thrill of getting it? And I kind of lost my train of thought there. But I was talking about how these karmic partners, they keep you in a kind of a latch longer, but it's also a lesson for you too.
Yeah, that's huge. It's huge that you recognize the pattern, but I agree with you in that, like, if it's someone from the past, that knowing grabs you to the point where you're like, this must be it, or there's something to it, rather than saying, oh, that's your memory from another layer to release. And I don't think it's that easy to release. We have our endorphins, we have our
Yeah.
emotions, we have comfort zones. And then I think when you look at a spiritual level, when you look at that Six of Cups energy, there are also these cords to cut. And I found that those karmic ones won't sever until you learn. I thought it was very interesting recently. I've done a cord cutting on myself, and they're like, you could feel some of those attachments release. And you're like, okay, great. But there was one in particular that wouldn't sever. And I was like, well, what's going on here? This still feels like a roller coaster ride. Where do I go with this? And it wasn't until I learned the lesson that cord could be cut. And I was like, oh my gosh, like my brain was just like, like,
So the lesson was in the cord cutting, you're saying?
no, it wasn't until I realized it was actually a moment of self-worth. And it was when I had already prayed to release negativity. I had prayed to release karmic ties, cut cords that aren't healthy, but one stayed. But it wasn't until one like meditation that I realized, I told myself, my guides, however you want to say it, I deserve better. I really sat with self-worth. Then all of a sudden those attachments just went, and I was like, I had
Mm-hmm.
to learn that piece. It wasn't just cleaning house. It's just like you said the last time we talked, is emptying but also filling.
Yeah,
So
the replacement.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, because
Yes.
I used to do a lot of letting go, but I would forget to replace. And I that's one of the biggest steps is now you have an empty hole. What do you fill it up with? You know? And other people will just go, oh, I'm going to get distracted. I'm going to fill it up with distraction so I don't feel, you know, and I don't have to process this because they don't want to pay attention. But then the same thing happens again, right? To me, keeping busy, this is also a big thing of mine, is most people when they break up with somebody, I notice they're going through hardship. What's their cure? Their cure is either to get drunk get drunk, sob for a little while, you know, which is fine too, as long as you can pull yourself out of it. Um, and then staying distracted. And, you know, I just find that to be really telling in even in that is what are you distracting yourself from? Like, why are you not wanting to feel? Like,
Mm.
sit with it, go hermit style, you know,
Yes.
and look at it.
Yeah. And I definitely feel like the cure to the pain is in the pain. And this is coming from someone who's run in every direction and found every distraction imaginable. It's like spirit has to like do something really extreme to be like, girlfriend, listen.
Hey.
Yes, yeah. Like, poor guys. They're so patient, but I agree with you. You do have to sit with it. You do need that hermit mode because to find that light in the dark and not just be that hole. And I love that idea of filling yourself with that light. It's just huge.
Yeah, and there's also this concept I've noticed with a lot of like people, spiritual people right now, is they're always talking about getting out of the dark, getting out of the dark. And I just feel like sometimes it's okay to sit in the dark and pay attention to what you're feeling. And to me, dark just means go inward. It is darker in your subconscious mind. It is, if you feel sad, go ahead and feel it, you know? And so when everybody says, oh, I'm a light worker, I'm a light worker, which yeah, you ultimately have to find this little glimpse of light that gets you out. But I think there's so much you can learn too within that hermit dark space, you know, and you know, the hermit card of it's all
Yeah.
black and he just has one little candle that kind of leads his way. You know, I find that to be a kind of a good symbol of the way that you go when you're going inward.
Yeah, that deep exploration. You can't bypass the shadow. There's a reason why you hear things like the dark night of the soul. Like you have to integrate the light and the dark because if you keep running from your dark, how do
Yeah.
you ever love yourself? Do you know what I mean? Like we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Like you have to embrace those imperfections with love or what we think are imperfections or perceive them.
Yeah. And hey, we're all imperfect. We have to also
Yeah.
embrace that, you know?
Yeah. So then how do you connect with this idea of, let's say, like bringing partnership with the idea of beautiful imperfections with healthy communication and boundaries? I applaud you on your knowledge of boundaries and clear communication and self-worth. And I think all of that speaks volumes to how you can enter into a relationship in a healthy way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people when you ask, "Hey, do you have a boundary?" Like I'll give you an example. My boyfriend probably won't like me sharing this, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. Um, so when we got together, it seemed kind of like very fairy tale, but there was a big problem. There was one really big problem, and it was that he had not severed from his ex. They were broken up, but she still kind of could manipulate him. And she'd be like, I need money. I need this. I need that. And he would still do stuff for her. And that was my boundary is to
Mm.
say, no, you are not doing that. If you want to stay, is going to happen. That's not going to happen. And of course, you know, I waited till we got to us just being together and really dating. I didn't do that the first day, you know,
Fair
on the
enough.
first date or two, because, you know, you still have to explore, like, are you guys really being together? Because I also see this, I see people, they go on one date and they're like, he better do everything for me now by the second date. And it's like, wait a minute. You have to realize what the dating period is too, before you communicate, like, is this a thing or not? And sometimes it does take a little bit to get the whole thing going, and knowing where you guys even stand first. And so that was one of our big things. We almost broke up from it. But I guess that's another thing. You have to be willing to keep your word, because if you just say, oh, this isn't going to happen, but you keep dealing with it, then they know that you're going to deal with it, and they'll keep doing it. So I think that's a big step too, is knowing where your line is.
Huge. And your worth, it's no different when you're negotiating a sale, and you have to be willing to walk away. What is worth it to you and what is not? And ultimately, you have to be worth it to you to not put yourself in any karmic situations or just be a doormat. I mean, I used to say welcome on my forehead with some grass stains for the longest time.
Doormat. No, I get you. I mean, that 10-year off and on thing, like, why did I answer him every summer, say, hey, yeah, let's hang out for the next like 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and then disappear again? Why was I okay with that? And I notice a lot of people come back to, but it's unconditional love. It's unconditional love, which I get and believe in unconditional love. But when you're in a partnership, it's supposed to be equal. It's an equal partnership. So that doesn't mean when you give unconditional love that you're going to be a saint and a Jesus martyr type, and just give and give and give and get nothing back. That's not really a relationship either,
That is huge. Like, I couldn't have said that any better. And I think that's really important, because the unconditional love comes here first before it goes out. There needs to be the reciprocity. And you can have your own standards and your own set of expectations within the relationship. And so someone from the external might be like, oh, why are they doing things that way? Like, you get to decide, but it really is up to the two people partnered, or if you're in a polyamorous relationship, whoever is involved, to decide what's right. But it does need to come full circle within that connection. It shouldn't be lopsided. Definitely not.
Yeah, and so far what I've been able to see, and I've seen this with men and men too, and it doesn't have to just be women and men type of thing. I've seen it everywhere across the board, is their excuse for having a relationship that doesn't give back is they think that they're being taught unconditional love. And I find this to be interesting, because you can love somebody. It doesn't mean that you need to be with that person, though, if you're not getting what you need.
Yeah. And I've made the mistake, if I just keep giving, it's almost like I used overgiving as a way to prove myself worthy of being in that connection. And I'll tell you what, when you're with a narcissist, there is never a bar, because as soon as you meet a bar, they change the game, and there's just no winning other than losing who you are. There is no pouring from an empty cup. I'm really glad you brought up unconditional love, and especially seeing the other readers, the twin flame journey, and that whole, I'm just going to put my life on hold and wait and put up with this drama, because that is unconditional love. I don't know what to think of it or how to speak to it with compassion some days and hold space.
Me too. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that they really like my work and they understand my work. And I guess you can expand more on this, but this is my concept of twin flames, is that they are like, somebody tells me, oh, I'm an awakened twin soul. I mean, to me, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. That means to me that they met somebody, right? Okay, so they met somebody who triggered them to go inward in self-love, right? But why do I see then all these cards about what I didn't say to you? Oh, I wish I would have told you this. And why are they waiting? Why are they torturing themselves and waiting for this person? If this is healthy. And so I do believe in twin flame and the concept of that, it triggers you to go inward. I like that, but I also think that it should be, not should, I keep saying that word, but there has to be some kind of balance with it, that you're not holding for that person, because most of the time I feel like when I'm seeing these people, because I do counsel people in relationships, and when I find somebody who's really obsessed with twin flame journeys, it ends up they leave that person ultimately at the end.
I have
Or
seen this. Yeah, I've seen the same thing, and I feel for them because it's like torture on so many levels. And I've experienced it myself where everything is happening in like a dream state, more of like a psychic realm, getting information, that pull, but yet that, and I've even heard, you know, people talk, well, that's just the journey. It's in and out. There's not that much happening in 3D, but I agree with you. If you, it's not within you to feel the trust and the grounded energy of the relationship, if there is not the communication between the two, then what do you have? Yeah. So I don't think I have to say it. You get it. I definitely feel like there's something to learn from it. And the first thing that comes to my mind's eye when I hear twin flame is there's a card in the Wisdom of the Oracle deck by Colette Baron Reed, and it's
oh, I have those, yeah.
the regeneration card is what I think of a twin flame. It's that like burning the force to rebuild. It's not her soulmate card when I think of the twin flame journey. Like it breaks you down to build you up. It's like the marathon training or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot there's, you know, I don't really want to box it into words. Like, I mean, there's karmic partners, there's soulmates, there's twin flames, whatever you want to call these people, you know.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, who knows? There can be, I do believe that you get reincarnated with a soul group, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you do have these journeys together where one person can be one person in one life and another person in another life. And you do have these kind of lessons to be, you know, learned in each one. But it's funny is I'm not going to totally kind of say the twin flame things doesn't exist, because I know the guy, I dated this guy, but he didn't end up being that interested. I mean, I liked him a lot, but he triggered me really simply into that's why I started this whole thing is it's because of him. But I wasn't sitting there going, oh, I wish I could go back with him. I just realized right away that this wasn't about him and it was about me. And we actually had really no significant connections within our chart. I noticed that to begin with. We had like decent ones, but not those huge triggers. And I remember when I did cards with him in my mind, that twin flame came up. And I just remember that. So it could be, but I think there's also a way that you just don't need to actually be with that person, you know. And I think then some people, maybe they don't understand the whole concept, right? Or maybe they do, but I don't know where this idea of I'm going to have a conversation with nobody right now and just nobody's thinking and wait for this person. Where does that come in? That's the part where I'm just like, I don't
Yeah.
follow, you know?
Yeah, and I do believe there's a sense of forgiveness in relationships, but that waiting on yourself to live, not so much. And I'm with you on, you know, you can connect with someone, it can be profound, it can happen on different layers, but it doesn't mean that's the end all be all to your overall existence. And here we're back to self-worth and boundaries once again, and it always comes back to that.
It always does in any type of relationship too. It doesn't even have to be partnerships. It can be family members. And I'm like, you know, the boundary things is a huge thing, because I've noticed some people, I think we talked about this before too. Some people do really hard boundaries. Well, they're like, you screwed me. Yeah, I'm not talking to you anymore, you know, and they're really strong about it and rude about it. And I feel like it doesn't have to be that. Because so when you start thinking about boundaries, some people get upset about it now, I've noticed. And it's because they've had somebody do that to them that was very mean and in a hateful type of way almost, instead of in a nice way. And just, you know what I've noticed too? Sometimes you don't even have to say it. You just do it. You
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. this works, this doesn't work, and that's it. We're aligned. I have seen that too, that it's like it's almost like a fight. The fight's already there, the resistance already there before the connection gives the reason for it. They're just waiting to set fire. It's how I would kind of, describe that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's good to always check in with yourself and say, hey, do I need this boundary still? Is everything, 'cause things change, people change. And sometimes you can get rid of one altogether, I've noticed.
Beautiful. That's nice that ever fluid. And we've had so many changes in society right now with restrictions in travel. We had isolation. And with all these changes, how do we manage connection? I mean, I used to talk about like for myself that I was living online once in a while, like, just researching another state, looking at other houses, looking at jobs. And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to live online for a while. Well, now life is online. So how do we need?
After this is over, we're never getting on Zoom again.
Give you a big hug.
I'm going to come visit you.
Great. So how do we make somebody who, like, how do we grow forward? I feel for my daughter right now. She's in a college campus. They get meals delivered. They're sitting in their dorms. I don't see how that's healthy. YMCA, it's been cut. Like, healthy avenues have been cut. So then how you would feel yourself in singlehood isn't there. Not giving hugs, we're wired to love each other. We're wired for touch. And then where do we go now with these restrictions, whether it's dating or otherwise?
It was funny. This girl I know, she's in college too, and she was just telling me she asked some guy out on a socially distant date. I was like, "What is that?" I don't even know what that is. What do you do? What do you mean you sit 6 feet apart? I'm not sure. I really don't know about that part.
I guess you could eat dinner together on Zoom or something, or be like, let's go for a picnic in the park, and you're both in two different parks with your cell phone. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, all I can share about what I've gone through with this whole COVID thing, it started off being weird, right? Because we have to adjust to it. And I noticed my boyfriend coming home. Well, first off is he goes to work every day, and they have a very small office, so they have everybody socially distant, and I get to work from home. And at first I was like, this is nice. I love all my alone time. This is great. And I do love all my alone time. But when he'd come home, I got a headache because it was just like another person in my space now, and I was used to peace all day. So then that created a little friction. And now I can't even imagine going back to work and being around a whole bunch of people that I don't really enjoy that much. I mean, there's a handful I like, but not that many that you're forced to be around, because you're not choosing those people. It's like, I have a handful that I like there, and so I feel like at first I did notice myself getting a little codependent on him because he'd be the only person that I'd be seeing and being like, oh my God, a human. And so it shifted from like, oh, I like this alone time to, hey, oh my God, another human's around, to like, now I'm balanced in it and I'm enjoying it. And now when I go out to dinner and stuff, because where I live now, things are pretty normal because it's a smaller beach town. So it's more spread out and there's not like, everybody's not squished together. And I went out the other day, we went to dinner and I was just like, so many people around me. So I feel like it's a real kind of like gradual thing what's going on, that's what it was like every day. And then it got you used to being a hermit and now it's going back. So on your side, it sounds like they're still doing more socially I don't even know how that would work with the dorm because everything's so small.
I know it seems unhealthy to me, but this is sometimes I'm like, am I a codependent parent? Like, this is my baby.
Yeah.
And it's funny. One thing I wanted to say about singlehood is how society I think has, even whether we look at partnership or singlehood, society has its own filter, whether you're talking like ball and chain, like what is that? But I remember my first time at the bus stop with moms. We had just moved to a new county, and there's like a ton of moms and kids at the bus stop. And I'm an introvert, and I'm just like, whoa, what's going on? And right away, they're introducing themselves to me. They ask who I am. And we've already had that conversation of like, what do you do determines who you are, and that grumble about that. But this particular mom was like, what does your husband do? Like, I don't exist. But what does my husband do? And I was like, I'm not married. And I've never been married. And she was like, I'm sorry. And I think I was, I took it as she's like, I'm sorry you're never married. She could have meant, I'm sorry for saying that. But I was like, I'm not. I was just like, wow, like that's what we've just met, and that's where you're going. What does your husband do? So like my status, my identity is linked to the ring on my finger and this man's last name, and there's so many things wrong with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, some people tell me that about children. They're like, oh, you're that old and you haven't had children yet. And I'm like, I get to travel the world. I don't feel stuck here. I mean, I don't have, I have a dog. She's like my child. I treat her like a child. But I tell Josh, I'm like, I gave birth to her. She's my baby.
She's so allowed to be.
Yeah, but they have this idea. And I noticed actually my mom, she said this to me the other day, because she's kind of on her last few years of, this world. And she was like, I'd like you to see you and Josh get married before I go. And I was like, no, Mom, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, because I was like, because that did so well for you, right? And she was like, oh yeah, that's true. And she was like, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry I said that. Because she had to get rushed in a marriage because of her religion. They can't sleep together before they get married. So it was kind of a rush thing for them. So she now, in retrospect, she looks back and goes like, oh God, like, I don't know why that happened. But, that's one of these things that you're stuck. I mean, you're not stuck because you could get divorced, but somebody who's older doesn't want to go through all of that again,
Yeah. And I'm a byproduct of that. Parents had to get married because here I come into the picture.
Me too.
Yeah. And as far as my daughter and identity, it's, I feel it on the flip side of not having kids, but like having her and being like the volleyball mom or being the team mom and all the things I would do for her, running her around, doing like my whole life revolved around her. There was a period of my parenthood with her when I was just like really clueless. Not that I ever really got my head straight, but then there was this other part that I did the opposite extreme where it was like, I was at one driving everyone around. I was at one picking everyone up for practice. I was making this meal, doing that, and it was like, that was like my identity, was being this beautiful young lady's mother, and how can I be of service, and wow, it hit hard when she went to college. I was a crying mess. Oh my gosh.
I bet. I probably wouldn't even want my kid to leave. I'd be like, no, stay with me.
I know. I should probably stop there. I was thinking, because when we were looking for colleges, I've also taught at a college. I've taught as an adjunct at the College of Southern Maryland in a few different departments, like the health and wellness and in the massage therapy department. I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, wherever she goes to college, I can work there, so I can go travel. I'm like, how unhealthy is that? Like, speaking of boundaries, like my kid needs to go live her life.
She's like, Mom, stay home. Oh my God.
I know.
Yeah. So I do know a few people who have, I can't say they've had great connections right now, but they have dated. And I don't know if I should say this because it's technically not socially distant dating. So I don't know. Have you heard a lot about people dating during this kind of time?
I did. Well, I I live in an area where there's people around, so all the restaurants are now like in the streets.
Yeah.
So they're safe, they're open. So where I would normally drive through this cobblestone street is blocked off, and
Yeah.
people
Same
eating.
here.
But I did see someone, you know how you can just see that young love, the two people like together, and they were just talking by the water with their masks on. I was like, oh, that's a new little love happening.
You're not getting any kisses with that mask on.
I know, right?
But yeah, I think even though it's hard right now with people, you know, with all this social distancing thing, I think people are managing. At first, I do know a lot of like the first like super quarantine. I think that was when April, end of May, I mean March, April. I do know a few people who got really depressed about just because they were already single, they were looking already, and then it made it like, you know,
Yeah.
just stuck. So I do know it's been a little hard, but I think it's people are, if we go back into a lockdown, I'm not so sure how many people are going to take it seriously again, you know, because people are very frustrated with everything that's happened, how much is real, how much is not real. I mean, we know it's real, but we don't know where it came from really. Like, who knows, maybe they're spraying it in the air before elections. They're like, election time's coming, you know. I don't know. I don't trust our government at all. So that's
I'm nervous about those mail-in ballots. I'm not going to lie to you. Either way we look at it, but I guess we shouldn't go there.
I know. That's a whole other thing. It'll be another one. And we'll get hate mail on it. Hate comments. We don't want hate comments. Okay.
So yeah, I don't know much about the dating world with that. I'm an introvert, and I work in I kind of keep to myself, and most of the people I know are partnered, so it's like not part of my regular conversation. And even the people I'm with, it's interesting some of the dynamics I'm working with coaching. Oh, sorry, I'm right by a fire department.
It's okay. It's not that loud.
Okay, good. So yeah, the only thing I would think is that right now, not only are social norms changing, but perhaps I've thought about it two ways. Is now you have the time to kind of communicate and get to know each other and maybe discuss things and take conversation ways that you wouldn't have otherwise if you had jumped in and you are in physical contact. But then there's that other piece. Where was the second thing that was coming to mind? Oh, the things like the pheromones. Like, to me, it matters, like, how someone smells. I know that probably sounds really weird, but there is a
that's true. Yeah.
part of that
Mm-hmm.
that you would miss with the social distance dating. So I don't know.
It's, to me, it's both, because the pheromone thing is just about the attraction of the sexual level, right?
Good
So
point.
and we're already programmed to want to connect with that person, whoever is going to give us more kids, which I know is crazy, right? Or how can they impregnate us? Or we, like, our bodies know like who's going to be the stronger kind of guy. And I think that has part to do with that pheromone type of thing. So I feel like it's more of a sexual thing. And sometimes that's what gets messed up in your head. You think that this guy is great because of this, and it's just ends up being a drug, right? It's just a drug that you're like, oh man, I guess I was wrong, because then the logic part isn't there too. And I really feel like it's both, though, because you can't be with somebody that you don't like their smell.
Yeah.
I've noticed that too, where I'm just like, oh no, we could never date because I don't. But I do think, I mean, I have many friends who before I even met Josh, that I thought I liked, or we kind of had like a long distance communication thing. And I still talk to them. They're still really good friends of mine. And I do think if you start with this level of talking and it does last that long, for a really long time, I know when you really want to get together with somebody and they're far, it's torturesome in a way. But I think it gives you a real understanding of this friendship. Everybody always tells me too, I don't know if they tell you this. I talk to a lot of older people and they always have told me, um, what you get at the end of a love relationship is your best friend. You should have your best friend. So I really think that comes into it is you start off really just getting to know that person. Do I like this person? Can we talk about everything together? And I think communication is one of the number one keys with that.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point, and I didn't honor this comment. The idea of timing is huge, and I think you did a good job of explaining of how there is progression and how the communication changes over time. Just like that idea of like re-traumatizing yourself by opening up and sharing too much too soon, that then it comes back to you in an unhealthy way. If that seems to fit for you, but that timing as well as get to know each other. Good.
Yeah, yeah, it is timing. So you can't force things to happen immediately. Things blossom on their own. And yeah, that's what I would say in a relationships is stay open to timing. It could be the right person, but the wrong time. You know, you never know. I wouldn't say just throw that idea out, you know, but don't hold on. There's a place of where you can have something, can have an intention, but you don't grasp, but you kind of let go, but it can be
Mhm.
there. And it's just floating kind of in the air, right? And I think that's kind of like a good thing to have right now because you do want the best, but you don't turn everything down because you don't want to get hurt. I've seen that too, because that's a self-sabotage. And I see somebody go on one date and they're like, oh, I didn't like a comment that this person made. We're not going on a date number two. Or they can tell they might get rejected by the second one. So they dump them first. And it's like,
Mm.
you know, I'm
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for I'm looking for my soulmate only. It's like, but you're gonna need to figure some stuff out about you first before
Beautiful.
you're gonna even attract this person. So I think you do need to really enter into life showing up for your life and maybe dating somebody who's not your soulmate might be in your path because you need to learn a lesson first, you know? Like I did have this one ex, he was horrible, but one thing he did always tell me, which he was right, is he said, I don't think that we're the ones who are supposed to be together. He's like, I think I'm a big lesson for who you're going to meet next. And I think he was right.
I just got That's pretty interesting that he even stated it. And I think you're right about this holding. And I think that's more the place of unconditional love is not the give and not get back. It's that place of non-attachment and that freedom to both you be you and their you. And I just want to honor other styles of relationships. If that's where you're at, is just everyone free to be themselves. And that's kind of that place of unconditional love. And if that cycles back to where you're fueled, you're golden. But if it drags you down, it's not to say things aren't going to be perfect. Then
Yeah.
that's the point of when you have to reevaluate and set new boundaries, communicate, and be willing to walk away if you're not
Yeah.
getting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, as they say, attachment causes suffering, right? Attachment is the ego. We think it's not because it's wrapped up in this unconditional love space, right? So we're like, oh no, it's fine. But when you attach to those things, you also have an attachment to what you want and the ending, right? So it really is good to, even if you love somebody, even if you care about them, to always, even if you're married, learn to let go a bit, you know?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I that whole stretch where you talked about holding space, I was just like, wow, like couldn't say that better myself. It was like, oh, done here. This is you got that. That was
Well,
just great.
thank you. I don't know what I say half the time either. So I'm like, I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna wing it. Because I talk better unless if I have like we're just doing this type of thing than if I have notes.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like this gives some direction, and I feel like this gives space for some of the things that we have talked about already and what I think we're both seeing out in the world and the people
Hmm.
we work with. And I do hope that all this information serves on some level to at least give like an open mind or a new perception of what they're going through and give some hope, because you know, while I can look from the outside looking at someone coming in for a reading, or look at a friend who has an unhealthy relationship, it's easy to see what from outside, but when you're in it, wanting these emotions and wanting this love and you're getting some sort of return on what you're not getting, it's painful. It is suffering, and that much is hard. And I think that kind of fuels both of us to continue to be a support for those out there, whether it's coaching, readings, or chatting online, hoping that it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, definitely. I love doing these type of things because, you know, breakups, right? Every breakup feels like the end of the world, unless you're the one who did it. But even if you do it, there is still a period of where you're comfortable is gone, and it takes a while to get back to that. Like, oh, I'm so used to doing this at this time. And you know, sometimes, and I've also noticed this, I don't know if it's very common, but I think it is you might know why you're breaking up with a person, and it's fine until you see them with somebody else. And then you have to go through breakup number 2 is how what I call it. And then that one, I noticed, puts people back to square one. And then they have to do the whole letting go cycle again.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. It is like a traumatization. I think for me, and this is speaking specifically to the last relationship that I stepped outside that was unhealthy, to put it lightly. I feel like when you have parents, you're given like this kind of programming with your parents, so that what they teach you ends up being part of your filter, the way that your mind works. And I think you kind of gain new opportunities for perspective and growth in relationships. And I think when it's unhealthy, that then you get this other undercurrent that then has to be reprogrammed again. So I have found myself like catching that, no, this isn't my life. This is someone else's negativity projected on. When there's emotional abuse, when there's gaslighting, when there's stonewalling, then that becomes another layer between the ears that then, or at least, you know, I think I've even seen it with other people. And because I've experienced it, I can speak to it and go, here, try these tools to grow out of that karmic cycle. I think that's another part of the breakup process that,
absolutely. And it's also about, I think one really empowering thing people might look over is taking responsibility that, I mean, it's true that our parents put on us, how we were programmed, all of this, but it's also us. Take responsibility. I think that becomes like a really good step to step out of it too, is realizing, yeah, it could have been all these things, but I'm not going to point the finger. It's up to me to take this next step, you know, and it was me who allowed that, and all, you know, everything.
Beautiful. Accountability. I agree.
Yeah. That was one of the things that helped me, at least, starting to realize like, oh, I can take charge of this. I don't have to point my finger at my mother or whatever happened, you know. Right. And I can just yeah, I was watching actually a funny I don't have to go into that, a funny George Carlin video the other day, and he was just talking about, you know, how he is, he just cusses every other but he was funny. He was just like, everybody's just pointing the finger like, it was that person and it was the media, you know. Yeah.
Well, I think for me, that was why I chose to be single, because I was like, wait, I need to regroup and figure out what I did to bring this about. And while I wouldn't say that anyone deserves abuse, rape, or neglect, any of those things, there is some sort of allowing, or if it's a pattern in the past that you've continued. So I think that programming piece, what you're saying is you keep rolling with that same program rather than hitting Control Alt Delete and moving forward in your divinity. So
yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Anything else?
Like I think we covered a lot. I'm pretty sure we covered a lot. Is there anything else you'd like to go over?
No, because I feel like I can talk to you for hours also. but I feel like as far as like the key points that I think are
Yeah.
important to like put out there to then continue, I think we did that. Check, check, check.
Yes, and if anybody has any comments or questions on, I'm going to post this up on YouTube. I don't know if you will too. Go ahead and ask us, and we'll I think we're going to build some kind of something around these videos, shouldn't we? I think that we'll have like a page where you can ask questions and comments, and we'll keep bringing to you similar kind of, you know, segments. It's kind of fun to do this, and also sharing what we've gone through, you know, to help other people too.
Yeah, that's the idea. So thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Okay, I'm just, hold on one sec.